pumpkin painting inspired by Yayoi Kusama. So Yayoi Kusama is a Japanese contemporary artist, which means that she is working and living right now. She loves pumpkins and she loves dots. She says that dots are a way for her to calm down her anxiety by repetition. So we're doing this so we can practice some watercolor techniques and also link to our pumpkin walking story. So here's a quotation from Yayoi Kusama. "I would confront the spirit of the pumpkin, forgetting everything else and concentrating my mind entirely on the form before me." She really likes pumpkins. So here's some examples of her artwork that features pumpkins. So she started out doing the two-dimensional paintings of pumpkins. There's a detail with the dots and the patterns. And then she moved into making 3D pumpkin forms. So sculpture pumpkins. So there's a left, on the left it's a 2D, on the right it's a 3D. And then there Yayoi is with one of her pumpkin sculptures. So we're gonna channel some of Yayoi's creativity and we're gonna draw our own pumpkin with dots and patterns as well. So here is my reference pumpkin. I'm going to be looking at it when I'm drawing. You can look at a photo of a pumpkin or some of the pictures that were in the walking story slideshow, or you can just Google pumpkin. We're gonna need some watercolor paper. We're gonna need our watercolor palette. We're gonna need pencil, eraser, marker, and crayons if you have them, wax crayons. So we have a black and a white wax crayon. If you do not have them, you can still do this project. You'll just use your marker to do your dots instead. And of course we have our palette to mix our paints. So I'm gonna start by sketching out my pumpkin. So I'm just gonna start by drawing sort of a circular round shape. It's not perfectly round, it's almost sort of like an oval. And I'm not drawing it very dark, I'm just kind of getting the shape in there. And then I have the stem. The stem isn't coming directly from the top, it's sort of coming from just above the center of the oval. And then I'm gonna go over and fix my shape where I didn't get it correct. And then I will erase those other lines once I'm done. So I'm starting to do some of the lines for my stem. And then I have those little lines, the pumpkin has those little lines through like around the whole sort of, the orange part there. So I'm gonna start drawing those in. So I'm just erasing some of those areas where I'm correcting the shape. And I'm gonna draw the horizon line. And then I will start doing those cross contour lines of that form. The orange part of the pumpkin has those like lines. So I'll start with, this one is almost straight, but it's just a tiny bit curved at the bottom. And then there's some other ones. I'm not gonna do them all side by side. I'm gonna space them out just so that I can see that I'm getting them like in the direction that I want them to go. So they're slightly curved. And then I'll go in and do the other ones, which are a little bit lighter. So I'm not actually going to draw, I'm not going to like outline these with my marker or anything like that. These lines are going to be the guides for where I'm going to be putting my dots later on. So I'm good now. So now I'm taking my my white crayon and I'm gonna do a wax resist technique. So I'd like you to try out some different techniques. You don't have to do wax resist, but I'm just doing like with the side of my crayon, I'm rubbing some wax over my my table, I guess, that the pumpkin is sitting on. And now I'm going to do my background using the black crayon. So I noticed that Yayoi has, in her 2D art with the pumpkins, she has these patterns in her background. And I'm going to try to recreate sort of that, that style. So I'm just drawing some lines coming out and dividing my background up. And then I'm going to draw some lines coming out in different directions from those lines that I drew. kind of just making like a pattern with lines here using my wax crayon, my black wax crayon. So this is going to be a wax resist as well. So I'm gonna, because I'm using black, I'm gonna do a dark color on my bottom part of my my painting where I put the white wax, and then I'm gonna do a lighter color on the top because I'm going for contrast here. I noticed also in Yayoi's work she uses strong contrast, so she'll have black dots on a yellow pumpkin. She wouldn't put black dots on a dark purple pumpkin because there wouldn't be that much contrast with that kind of thing. So I'm thinking about contrast as I'm making my color choices here. Okay, so now I'm going to begin painting with some watercolors. So as you saw in the last video with how to make a wash, I'm going to start by making a puddle of water on my palette, and then I'm going to add some paint to that puddle of water. And I had some issues with my yellow paint. It was looking really yucky, so I just used a paper towel to clean it out. So I have a yellow wash, and now I'm going to start painting my yellow wash behind for the background. And remember, I painted a light color because my lines were black and I wanted a strong contrast. So I'm just going and I'm kind of trying to blend orange and yellow together. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a wet on wet technique. I'm just using some red paint, kind of mixing it in with my orange wash. And then I'm going to paint with water on top of the red so that it starts to sort of blend in and do that wonderful wet on wet effect that happens with watercolor. So that is my background, and now I'm gonna do the table or the surface that my pumpkin is sitting on. So remember, I had used the white wax crayon in that area, and so now what I'll do is I want to use a dark color for that part because I know that the white wax crayon is gonna resist, so I'm looking for contrast. So I've painted a black wash, and then notice I left a space in between my upper part and lower part, because if you don't let the wash dry, it will blend together. So you guys saw me having to sort of use my paper towel to fix up the part where the sky and the table blended together. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm trying to decide, you're seeing me contemplating and thinking, what color I'm going to paint my pumpkin. So I'm going to be doing the dots like Yayoi Kusama does in her work. I'm going to be doing the dots on my pumpkin. I'm going to be either using a white crayon as a resist, or I can use my black Sharpie after I have painted and after I've let it dry. So if I do white, I want to have a dark color for my pumpkin, and if I do black, I want to have a light color because I want to have strong contrast. So what I'm doing right here is I'm starting to use a white crayon to use as a resist to make a bunch of dots on my pumpkin. And I'm using those lines that my pumpkin has, you know, like the bumps that my pumpkin has that I've shown by drawing lines. I'm using those as a guide for where to draw my my dots. So I'm using pencil just to show you where the dots are. And it was also getting kind of hard for me to tell where the dots were. So I started to draw them in pencil so that I could kind of tell where I'm trying to put white dots. So I'm trying to cover the area within the dot with white crayon as best as I can and try not to leave any white areas. But like I said, because my paper is white and my crayon is also white, it's a little difficult. So you'll see me sort of speed up, and I'm going to be doing white dots, and then I'm going to be painting over them with a dark color of paint. All right, so I'm done. I sped up. I took out that part of the video where I finished doing the dots. I've covered all of the dots that I've drawn in pencil, and I've used the white crayon to fill in those dots. And now I am mixing a purple wash, a fairly dark wash, and I'm just painting over top of the wax crayon that I did. And I've realized that I forgot to do some of the dots, but that is fine. And I'm just gonna fill in just the areas with the white dots. I couldn't decide if I wanted to do all white dots or if I wanted to have some darker colored dots. So I'm gonna do black dots, but I'm going to use red background for my pumpkin. So what I'm doing here is I've mixed a red wash and I am painting it in, trying to blend it with the purple by overlapping it a little bit. The purple is still wet, so it's going to just do its thing. It's gonna mix together on its own, but I've also added some water on top. I'm gonna do that after I've done filling in all the area with red. I can add water on top to further blend those two colors together. And my background is completely dry at this point, so I'm not having any problems with the two mixing together. So make sure that you allow your background to dry. I know you'll have to draw the dots on, so likely it'll be dry by then. So now I'm adding some water on top to just blend those colors together. Now I need to decide what I'm going to do for my stem. So I'm going to do a red stem, and then I'm going to do red dots, but you'll see. So I'm going to paint the stem red. And I've mixed, again, quite a dark wash with not too much water. Okay, so I'm done painting. I've let this dry for about 2 hours. I've let it dry for quite a long time. And now I'm going in with a Sharpie marker and I'm just outlining my pumpkin. You can choose to go and like draw the lines that you drew for your pumpkin, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just gonna outline the outside. And now I'm gonna just repeat the same process that I did with my white crayon, but I'm gonna use my black Sharpie to draw the dots and fill them in using my black Sharpie. And I realized up there that my paper is actually still a little tiny bit wet in that area, so I'm moving on to a different area. And I'm following along with those lines that I drew in pencil on my pumpkin. I'm following the dots. I'm just drawing the dots on top of those lines. And I'm also making the dots go from larger at the bottom to bigger at the top. And it's honestly totally up to you what you do. You can make them all the same size. It's really your choice. So that's what I'm going to continue doing. Just doing the dots with my black Sharpie. All right, so now to deal with the stem. So what I'll do is I'm going to outline it first. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, I'm following again those lines that I drew in pencil, and I'm going to draw dots all along the stem as well, because in Yayoi Kusama's work, that's what she does. And then I'm just going to fill in the areas around the dots with black Sharpie. So I'm kind of doing reverse dots, if that makes sense. Okay, so I just kind of went through and I outlined my pumpkin a little bit darker. I'm darkening some of these lines in the background. I also did some hatching at the bottom where my pumpkin shadow might be. So you can just kind of go in and do some finishing touches and add some details if needed. And that's it. So I hope that you enjoyed trying out this Yayoi Kusama inspired pumpkin painting. And thank you so much for watching. I'm so excited to see your artwork.